Yeah, okay, I think we'll go ahead. We were trying to see if we could get everybody here, but I think we've got everybody here, and I think, is John still trying to get here? Okay, so we'll go ahead, and Senator Broden will be here in just a few minutes, and we're have the office of the Lieutenant Governor, and we have Tanya Brothers Bridge, who's the Chief of Staff, along with her help. So welcome to our Budget Committee deliberations. We started yesterday, and it seemed to work out pretty well. So you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. To senators, representatives, and other distinguished members of the committee, thank you very much for having us this morning. I'd like to start off by giving an overview of Lieutenant Governor's office, her executive office, business office, and then her family of business. To get things started, though, I'd like to introduce those members of our team who are present here today. Joining me to my left here is Ryan Heater. He's Lieutenant Governor's Policy Director. We also have Kylene Welling, our Chief Operating Officer and Chief Legal Counsel. Kylene. Emily Duncan, who's our Public Relations Director. Also with the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, Jake Sipe is our Executive Director, and joining him is Zach Rice, the Legislative Affairs and Policy Director. With our Indiana Office of Defense Development, Dwayne Embry, our Executive Director. Indiana Office of Tourism Development is Mark Newman. Our Indiana State Department of Agriculture is led by Ted McKinney. The Deputy Director, Melissa Reckaway. David Bausman is our Policy and Regulatory Affairs Director, and Jordan Sager, Division of Soil and Water. With our Office of Community and Rural Affairs, our Interim Director, Kylene Welling, and we just announced yesterday that Bill Kanya has accepted Lieutenant Governor's office offer to run that agency. He'll begin in January. The Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship is led by Jacob Spack and his Assistant Director, Jane Rich. So if I may just take a few minutes, we're going to leave the bulk of our time for two major presentations, and that'll be with our Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship and our Office of Tourism Development. But I thought it might be helpful for the members to have a better understanding of the work that Lieutenant Governor has within her executive office and her business office. The executive office really consists of those executive team leaders. A few of those that I just introduced to you. Emily Duncan, who handles our public relations. We've consolidated our communications within Lieutenant Governor, and Emily really takes the lead on assisting the communications functions within our entire family of business. So all of those communications directors within our agencies report to Emily. Ryan takes the lead for all policy and legislative initiatives within Lieutenant Governor's family. Jim Morrison is our Veterans Affairs Officer. He works very closely with the Office of Veterans Affairs and travels the state on behalf of Lieutenant Governor. Dennis Roseborough is Lieutenant Governor's Communications Director. Peggy Welch is our Intergovernmental Affairs. She, again, travels the state. And Kylene Welling handles all of our operations as well as our legal functions. So we have a function called the Business Office. It's located at 1 North Capitol, and most of the employees there will report to Kylene. We've recently, in an effort to be more efficient and more effective, we've consolidated our grants operations, and so that grants team supports all of our agencies. Those folks report to Kylene. So we take a very proactive look at how we manage state dollars, and we very much want to look for those efficiencies and ways that we can better serve. And those two examples that I just mentioned, our communications and our grants work, are ways that we have done that this past year. So without further ado, I'd like to talk just a little bit about the 6 agencies that Lieutenant Governor oversees, the largest of which is really a quasi-agency. It's the Housing and Community Development Authority, again, led by Jake Sipe. And their role is really to create and preserve housing for Indiana's most vulnerable. So they create and support housing as well as work to end homelessness. They have housing solutions either from temporary shelters to home ownership, and really do a tremendous job throughout the state. You'll hear a lot about their blight elimination program, their affordable housing initiatives, and so forth. You'll see their organizational chart. It is also overseen by a board of directors. Lieutenant Governor chairs that board, and I serve as her designee. Really, there's some more information that I won't read to you, but IHCDA really has led the way and is a national model. Jake and his team are often revered as best practices for many other states, so we're very proud of the work that they do. Next up is the Office of Defense Development, led by Dwayne Embry. The Office of Defense Development was a new office that Governor Pence and Lieutenant Governor stood up to really focus on Indiana's defense assets. And so Dwayne and his team are focused on the installations, the industry, and the innovation. How do we support the defense industry within the state? And so one of Dwayne's key initiatives is commercialization. Really taking that intellectual property and how do we create jobs and create businesses from that. You can see the Indiana Office of Defense Development is a very small team with just 3 members, with Dwayne John DeMett, who recently joined us for tech commercialization, and Brandy Hughes in a support function. The Indiana Office of Tourism Development, led by Mark Newman, you're going to hear a much more detailed presentation from Mark as we are requesting additional funding from that group. Recently underwent a phenomenal rebranding initiative that's created some national buzz. We have been recognized for how effectively we've used those tourism dollars, but I'll certainly yield my time to Mark as he'll share more about the success he's had. The Office of Tourism Development is really a revenue generator for us, and so we want to consider that as Mark gives his presentation. Our second largest agency within Lieutenant Governor's family is the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, again led by Ted McKinney and his Deputy Director, Melissa Reckaway. They're really advocates at the local, state, and federal level for Indiana agriculture. So our goal is really to be a global leader in the food, fuel, and fiber sectors. And we also take great pride in our stewardship of natural resources for agriculture land. Joining Ted, as I said, he also has Jordan Sager, who takes responsibility for that soil and water initiatives. And as you can see from their org chart, they have a number of individuals, many of those who are around the state serving out in the field, if you will. The Office of Community and Rural Affairs, as I mentioned, interim leader is Kylene Welling. Bill Kanya will join us January 5th as that leader. OCRA really serves as the capacity building agency to make sure that our rural, our small towns, our small cities are prepared for the future and that job growth. They work on human capacity building, and they have a number of different programs that they help those rural communities implement to make them even better and more attractive. 57%, it's interesting to note that 57% of Hoosiers live in rural areas. So it's an important group and something that Lieutenant Governor is passionate about success. The other agency that we stood up last year was the Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship. Jacob Spack and his team really work on business consulting and entrepreneurship programs. He leverages a lot of partnerships throughout the state, including private, public, and universities, academic. He's really trying to grow the entrepreneurs in that environment for stronger, faster, and smarter development. So, if there are any questions about that overview, I'd be happy to take those.
Yes, Chairman Brown.
Thank you. Thank you. Just about the 57% of the Hoosiers live in rural communities. Can I pick on Noblesville? Is Noblesville rural?
It sure was when I grew up, but I don't know. I guess we're not in that category too much anymore.
Definition of rural.
the definition of rural that's been provided by the feds as far as those communities that there's a population size, and I'm sorry that I don't have that. Can someone quote that population size?
It's 76 counties across the state, and it's, I believe, 50,000.
50,000 or
I
less,
think
that's the number I've
I'll double
seen.
check on that, but I think that's the number
Yeah.
they use.
You know, because part of the issue in this whole struggle are the urban areas, which will say, if you look at the last generation or the last decade, we're becoming more urbanized. And if you look into the future, as far as quality of life issues, we're going to be even more urbanized. And so it's a struggle. You know, do you put a lot of money in an area that by demographics and trends isn't going to be sustainable?
We were very intrigued and excited about the regional cities study that our friends at IEDC had commissioned, and how the region, how those individuals who enjoy living in rural Indiana travel into those regional cities for work or entertainment and so forth. So we believe there's value in the urban as well as the rural. So, thank you. Questions? If not, I'd like to turn it over to my cohorts here. First up would be Jacob Schbach, who leads our Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and he can talk in more depth about his agency and the request for funding.
You know, I apologize for not I'm struggling a little bit. We just got the materials here in front of us this morning, so I'm trying to race through this to catch up with you to figure out what it is that I'm looking at and what I'm interested in. And just to help frame the discussion this morning in the interest of time, I'm looking at these sheets here, and I see that we're proposing to go from a $1.1 million a year budget on the tourism to 5.4 in 16 and then 3.8 in 17. And so I have a lot of interest in what's going to happen there. And I guess one of the questions, in the last budget cycle, I took to the Lieutenant Governor a proposal from the county economic development or tourism development people who were willing to put in a matching grant as long as they could sit on a decision-making group with stakeholders and decide how best to use the tourism dollars, and that was turned down by the Lieutenant Governor. So I don't know if you've considered that approach or not, and I'd like to hear about that relationship. The other thing that I see on here, and I'm still trying to figure out how to put it all together, is, let me find the item if I can. There seemed to be another area that there was a fairly significant jump in the amount, and I'm not seeing that right off the top of my head, but I think we need to focus on those areas where we're asking for extra dollars, because at this point in time, we don't seem to be generating a lot of extra state dollars to cover a lot of increases, so we need to focus on those points if we can.
Chairman, we have two presentations for you. One of those
Okay.
is OSB, and one of those is tourism.
Great,
Would you like for the tourism group to go first?
great. However you've got it in your mind, but I just want to focus where we're talking about the extra dollars.
Yeah, those two, one would be the Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and one is the tourism.
Yeah.
So,
Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Issue related to the Indiana Homegrown Initiative that was a bill passed last session but had no funding in it, and how does the office look at that under the Department of Agriculture? Is there going to be a push to or an interest to have funding in that initiative?
Yes, and I would welcome Ted McKinney to come to the podium if we may, to ask him to address that. Ted, please.
Representative, thank you for your question. Yes,
You're on the way.
Thank you. I'm Ted McKinney, and I'm delighted to be here. Yes, well aware of the passage of that bill. That bill called for the creation of a commission, which we did create, activated July 1, the first date we could, and it's been meeting, and we're about two-thirds of the way through those meetings to craft a program that we think might serve the citizens of Indiana. I'd remind you that that program had existed about 18 months prior, but was really on life support. So we're in the middle of creating that program. We're trying to be very creative on where and how we find some funds. We think there's an opportunity for some partnering, certainly some private sector funds, and happy to come back to you all when that is more, when it's close to fruition. But I don't think that was one of the topics today. Just know that we're very active on that, and it's an exciting project. Okay?
Thank you. Chairman Kinley, may we bring
Sure.
Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship forward?
Whatever your pleasure is, that'd be great.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today about the Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship. OSB was signed into executive order last year, midsummer, and then codified into law during the first quarter. The Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship has three major programs underneath it. The first one, and what we consider to be the cornerstone program, is the Indiana Small Business Development Center. Around 3 years ago, we shifted the direction of the Indiana Small Business Development Center, where we, instead of measuring our outputs, we started to measure the outcomes of consulting sessions that the ISBDC provides to entrepreneurs. At the core of the program, we have 55 consultants that will sit across the table from entrepreneurs that either need assistance in basic business acumen, strategic planning, or project management. That project management can be in the form of putting together a business plan to obtain a bank loan or a marketing plan. The ISBDC, and I'm going to advance our slides here one direction so you can see OSB's statutory responsibilities at large, but the ISBDC, over the course of this transition, is seeing some phenomenal return on investment for the taxpayers. In particular, every dollar that's being invested in the ISBDC, we're realizing $52 new of capital. It's $52 new of capital with the businesses that we're working with. These numbers do not include any multipliers, or we do not extrapolate our data from a sample group. We receive testimonials and validated data directly from our clients, where we ask them not only were they able to raise capital, but was the ISBDC a contributing factor of that capital being raised. Another number that we like to share is the cost per job that our clients are creating, again, being validated that the ISBDC was a contributing factor of those jobs being created, costs around $2,000 a piece, and that includes all of our funds with the federal government, where the typical incentive package can range from $6,000 to $9,000 a piece.
Excuse me. So when I look at this sheet here, the only number that I see under Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship for actual FY14 is a transferred funds amount of $590,000. So you're telling me that you generated 52 times that in investment, 52 times 590. Is that how we get this number of $52 for every dollar that you spent, or is there some other dollar that's being spent somewhere?
52 for every dollar is factoring in not just the state of Indiana's financial contribution, but also the Small Business Administration, universities, chambers, and LEDOs, to get us to a total a little over $3 million. So we're actually receiving a $52 return for every dollar when we factor in the larger dollar
You're
amount.
receiving $52 times the $3 million.
That's exactly right. So the state's contribution is around $200 per every dollar.
Well, can you show me or just send to me that documentation? Because I'm not even sure how you're getting $3 million applied to your activities.
I'm happy to.
Yeah, I
The,
mean,
the 3 million is the overarching budget that the program has, and that includes
okay,
funds
well, that doesn't
outside.
show here. It just says $590,000. So,
I'll continue on with the other agencies under OSB.
Sure.
So along with the ISBDC, we have the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which provides, again, business consulting to entrepreneurs, but that's unique, directly tied towards securing federal contracts for small businesses. So we have a team of consultants that will identify federal contracts that Indiana businesses will bid on and consequently bring new dollars into the economy. That program came online in July of this year, and we're measuring returns on the number of new dollars that enter into the state of Indiana through the support of the PTAC program. Thirdly, we have a small business ombudsman. The small business ombudsman is responsible for working directly with entrepreneurs who are looking to navigate the state of Indiana to either launch or grow their business. He also helps with the process of disseminating small business information to the marketplace and working directly with government agencies and offices to make sure that they are sending their messages, communicating their messages out to the small businesses that they work with. Forward. So the budget that we are proposing, it really serves two purposes. The first one is to make sure that we remain in compliance with the federal government grants that we receive. There are two government grants. The first one is to administer the Indiana Small Business Development Center program. The second is to administer the PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center program. Both require matching funds. Currently, the state is, as the budget will show, the state is providing matching dollars. We also have partners throughout the state that are providing matching dollars as well to ensure that we can deliver those services across Indiana. The second one is to make sure that we maximize OSB's return on investment. We want to make sure that everyone across the OSB network, all of our employees and contract employees, are all focused on the core measurement success that matter to the state. And that in particular is making sure that we have the highest number of Hoosiers employed in the history of the state and being able to provide that at the lowest cost per job. There's been significant push that we've made at all levels of the organization to make sure that we're outcome focused. And moving forward with the budget that we have will allow us to continue to draw down those numbers. It is our expectation that we'll be able to help support job creation efforts where we would even receive a 25% greater ROI moving forward with the budget that we propose.
you know, Brian, I'm really struggling to figure out what's going on here. And I don't know, as we look at these things, whether we have the ability to get a clearer picture of this and how it accounts onto it. But the gentleman says that they've got about $3 million that they have that they're using in different ways that are from different sources. And so I don't know if the budget agency has, if this is all offline or what it represents. I can't get the picture in a very tangible way, and it's certainly not your fault, and not meant to be a criticism that we're not getting something done that's successful. But our job is to put together a budget of the tangible dollars that the state's going to invest in each program, and somebody at some point in time has to have some kind of a clear picture as to what we're investing in. And so I don't know how we resolve that, but I'm struggling with this a little bit this morning. So that's just a comment.
Thank you, Chairman. Jacob, will you talk a bit about the match that you received from your partners in the field, and that may answer part of the question?
Maybe that helps a little bit.
The Small Business Development Center program, it is administered out of the Small Business Administration. It's about a 30-year-old
Okay.
program.
Okay,
They provide to the state a $2 million grant.
Okay.
But it requires a $1 million match
Okay.
and $1 million in kind. For that $1 million match, the state provides $300,000. So the $300,000 for the ISBDC match is that $300,000. The remaining dollars come from our partners, including universities,
okay,
chambers, Lidos.
okay, that helps a little bit. So the universities are actually investing in this as well?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Chairman, we'd be happy to answer any more questions
Sure.
about OSB.
Well, perhaps I just need to if I could get some follow-up, maybe documentation to kind of help me, walk me through what all is being done and what it represents. And I see in the submitted transmittal letter that there are some numbers that are referred to here that talk about the proposed appropriation for OSB, and then it's going to come from some of these other entities for a total request of 1.25 million a year. And then down below, they have some performance metrics that talk about business starts and counseling hours and capital infusion. So that's maybe what I'm kind of looking for. I'm trying to figure out how we're getting a return on investment here. And so maybe we just need to visit sometime about with a little more tangible feel for how this is, what's happening. How does this come about, and what is it really producing? Developing small business is a very, it's a pretty difficult proposition because generally small business people are not structured at their point of their start. They're kind of somebody wants to have an idea, wants to run a business, wants to be an entrepreneur, and so you're trying to help them convert this over into a systematic exercise. And maybe some of the things you do with the Small Business Administration are the keys. Maybe that's the program that we actually work off of in terms of trying to develop it. So that would help me to.
So we receive 1,000 points of contact a day.
Okay.
And those points of contact, they're referred to us primarily from lending institutions, bankers, and CPAs, and those that work directly with
Okay.
small businesses. So the relationship that we have with what we consider to be business resource providers is that they understand that when they're working with an entrepreneur who could benefit from the types of services that we provide, the
Okay.
consultative services, they will direct them to us, and then we'll provide right now, of that 1,000 points of contact we receive a day, the ones that qualify for our consulting services, where we know that we can contribute in a meaningful, measurable way, it's around 3,500 clients a year that we'll convert.
So these folks are trying to get a loan to start a business, and so their loan officer says, you need to talk to the SBA, and you need to talk to this office and the Lieutenant Governor's office. And the SBA is the source of loans. I don't think they're the source of grants, are they? They just do loans. And your assistance is really in the form of service assistance, as opposed to, you're not actually giving dollars to a business to start up, are you?
That's correct. We are strictly business consulting.
Okay, all right.
Right. In the numbers that we report out, it is not the aggregated number of loans that entrepreneurs receive. It
Yeah.
is strictly the loans that entrepreneurs receive, or the capital that they receive, where they validate the data that the ISBDC was a contributing
Okay.
factor of those loans or of
So the
those-
$52 really represents a statement of here's how many people actually ended up qualifying for a loan, and this is the total of the loans, that capital that was achieved through our participation in this program. Is that a fair statement?
And
Okay.
I also, to include, it's private equity as well. So it is
Okay.
working with our innovation-driven businesses to obtain
right.
angel investors.
Thank you.
Chairman, if it pleases you, we have another presentation by
Sure.
Tourism.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Newman, Director of Tourism Development, will now address the group.
Good morning. My name is Mark Newman. I'm the Executive Director of the Indiana Office of Tourism Development. I'm here to talk with you about a couple things, one of which is funding for the Indiana Office of Tourism Development. The other related to that is a one-time appropriation in support of bicentennial activities for 2016. I'd like to begin by talking about the Office of Tourism Development and the industry in general. I feel like that we are at an unprecedented time in the development of tourism for the state of Indiana. We're feeling momentum in the state as a viable tourism destination that has not been felt here in many, many years, if ever before. Together with our partners in the field, the State Office of Tourism Development is taking aggressive action to create new efficiencies, drive visitors, and create opportunities for new travel-related revenue. The industry is producing meaningful economic impact for the state of Indiana. Today, the contribution to Indiana's gross domestic product is $7.7 billion. We generate collectively $2.1 billion in tax receipts. It's the sixth largest industry in the state of Indiana. And for every dollar that is spent here, 76 cents of that dollar stays here. The most compelling piece of information that I want to share with you is that every household in Indiana benefits from the presence of tourism in our state to the tune of $472 on an annual basis. It's a compelling number, and what it means is that because of tourism in Indiana, Hoosier households don't have to spend $472 in personal taxes to cover the cost of special services or projects that are taking place at the state level in Indiana. We're only successful as a state agency because of our commitment to collaboration, working closely with partners and stakeholders in the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry, but also across agencies. We value tremendously the relationships that we have with the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Transportation, ISDA, OCRA, as well as with the partnerships that we have with many destination marketing organizations, attractions, and hospitality-focused organizations in Indiana. In fact, we couldn't succeed in creating the programs that we have developed unless those partnerships existed. As a small organization with a team of only 5, we're dependent on their input and their thought leadership to help guide the decision-making that we engage in on a daily basis. Some of the programs that we have created over the last 2 years to elevate the image and profile of Indiana and to illustrate the integral contribution that travel, tourism, and hospitality make to our diverse economy was the creation of cooperative programs for research and advertising, an award-winning travel guide and distribution strategy that produces 500,000 copies of an Indiana travel guide and puts 300,000 of those copies into qualified households that have a propensity to spend dollars on travel across the region. We've created a consolidated state roadway map through a partnership with the Department of Transportation that enables us to create an advertising platform which generates additional dollars for the Office of Tourism Development, which we then reinvest into programs to support our valuable industry. We created an educational curriculum for 4th graders that teaches Indiana history through the lens of tourism. This is an extremely important initiative, and I'm proud to say that 201 classrooms across the state of Indiana use this curriculum as a way to aid in their efforts to teach social studies in our state. And it's important because as we attempt to grow a culture of tourism in Indiana and create a network of street-level promoters who do the work at the grassroots level that we're doing through more traditional advertising means, we're driving visitors to our state. And perhaps more importantly, we're driving people from within our population centers inside Indiana to areas across our state to explore the beauty and the allure of each of our four corners. We've developed a vibrant Indiana consumer brand and marketing strategy. You're familiar with Honest to Goodness Indiana. It was designed to be a consumer brand for the state. It is more than a tourism brand. What it's designed to do is to connect to all of the varying consumer elements that exist here, to promote Indiana, its destination qualities, the products that it produces, to drive more and greater investment and spending in our state. We have a robust digital platform that supports all of these activities. And we're very proud to be involved in an impactful place-based investment program with our partners at Okra, which help communities develop capacity and enhance their destination qualities and quality of life. These examples that I've shared with you are merely skimming the surface of the programs and products that we've created through the Office of Tourism Development. Our research shows that a dynamic marketing effort and a powerful brand identity at the state level rapidly improves outcomes at the local level. So when we created Honest to Goodness Indiana, and we rolled Honest to Goodness out into the marketplace, we did so using the first multimedia marketing campaign that the state has seen in 10 years to drive tourism activity. The results have been compelling. 55% of the population in the target MSAs where Honest to Goodness Indiana was promoted recalled Honest to Goodness Indiana when asked. Their likelihood of visiting Indiana destinations increased from 16.6% without ad recall to 44.2% with ad recall. And the traffic to visitindiana.com and its other website holdings is now well above 930,000, and by the end of the year will exceed 1 million individual sessions on our websites. This is compelling because, as I said, a dynamic marketing effort and a powerful brand identity at the state level has significant impacts at the local level. Our success as a state is in part dependent on our ability to nurture a diverse economy in this state. Travel, tourism, and hospitality offers an uncultivated economic development tool with ready solutions. But to truly move the needle.
Yeah, Mark,
I'm sorry.
excuse me. I'm looking at this line here on this account summary that's been submitted to us, and it says it's going from a request of about 1.1 million. Actually, I guess it was 1.1 million. And so we're going to go in 16 to 5.4 million. And then in 17, we're going to go to 3.8 million. And so that's about 5 times as much the first year, and then it drops down to where it's more than 3 times as much. So is there a kind of an initial setup cost to the expansion of your program that you're thinking about in the first year?
Yeah, there are 2 elements to the 2016 figure that you referenced, Senator. The 2016 number includes both, in addition to the Office of Tourism budget plus a one-time appropriation for bicentennial initiatives.
And how much is the bicentennial?
$1.63 million.
Okay. Is there any presentation in your presentation today about what we're going to get for the 1.6 million? I mean, what are we going to do with the money?
I'll tell you about the most significant portion of that, if I may. The most significant portion of that is a torch relay across the state of Indiana, which is a 5.5-week, 2,300-mile journey that will begin in Corden, meander through all 92 counties in Indiana over a 32-day period.
So we're going to pay people to run, or I mean, why do we have to spend 1.6 million to do that?
The complexities of the logistics are pretty significant.
Okay.
We're moving a program to engage the 6.3 million Hoosiers across the state in a memorable activity
Okay.
that's created to create unity across the state.
I thought there was some talk about some kind of an improvement of a facility over here in the north.
I think you'll hear about that when when Department of Administration,
So that's other money. That's not your money.
that's a different request.
Okay. And then, so then after that, you're going to go to 3.8 million. And you heard me mention earlier, I had encouraged the lieutenant governor a couple of years ago, and I know everybody was new in office, so it probably wasn't a very good time to talk about these things. But for example, how many counties have a hotel motel tax? Do you know?
It's around 40. It's not
About
every one.
40?
Yeah.
And they raise some pretty significant dollars there, and they have an association where they try to figure out, and they have to justify to their county government people how they're spending that money, as well as to the poor hotel operators that complain about the tax all the time. And so they're pretty honed into the idea of getting value for the money that they spend, and they had made an offer to match state dollars from their own revenue receipts for a bigger tourism budget, but they wanted to sit at the table and have enough votes to be able to help make the decision. And we weren't able to put that together the last time. And it seems to me that if the state's going to make an investment in doing this with an increase in our spending, we ought to, number one, leverage those dollars with these other dollars if possible, if you could reach some kind of arrangement. And then secondly, it seems to me that they have a greater expertise than we may have at the state level about how to focus and drill down with those dollars so that they become used effectively. I think that your comments that Indiana doesn't spend much on tourism in the past is true. So we're sort of developing this. And so I would like for you to at least try to see if there can be some kind of a way when we get into the session where we're actually requesting budget dollars to see if we can't really perhaps even generate more dollars with some kind of a working arrangement here. So,
And that's what we're doing here today. What I'm communicating to you is an effort to initiate that conversation,
okay.
but also to reassure you at your request from 2 years ago, as well as at Lieutenant Governor's urging,
Right.
that any major decision that is made with regard to how dollars are spent and the programs and activities that we engage in are done in a collaborative fashion, where we're consulting the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry on priorities so that we're making the best and most informed decision possible.
Right.
They've been deeply engaged in every decision that we've
Well,
made.
that's where we kind of ran into it because it was such a new discussion. I think we ran into a rub because obviously they're not going to give you your dollars, their dollars, and then you have the total final say on this thing. And so that's the element of this where I think that they're a workable group that we can find a way to get there. And
Developed our matching programs.
Okay.
Where dollars are matched one for
they're
one.
all at your discretion, right?
No, that's not true.
I mean, the lieutenant governor's office discretion.
However, I will tell you that they were deeply involved in decisions about how every marketing dollar that we've
Well,
spent.
that's good.
has been spent. Yeah.
That's good.
The markets that we go into, the types of media buys that are being made, and the way that, honest to goodness, Indiana came about.
Let me give you an example. We funneled a few $100,000 through to this sports development program over the years. And we can say, here's how many Big Ten tournament games we got, here's how many Big Ten football championships we got, here's how many NCAA events we got, here's how many cross-country championships we got. So we can say, here's what we got. And I'm hoping that we can generate a model that reflects that in terms of its substantive ability to say, here's what we got, or here's what we're shooting for if we take the money and try, Okay.
That model, I agree
right.
with you.
And if I may add, Senator Mark and his team have worked very collaboratively with the industry. Those
Well, that's-
one-to-one matches that he spoke about earlier.
That's great.
So.
That's
and that
great.
work continues.
Okay.
Other questions?
I'm not hearing that from them yet. I'm not hearing them say that we're really having a great relationship with the state tourism department, and it's really working. And I think I think that's part of the evolution of what this is, and I'm sure that everything that you're saying is where you are with respect to that. But I'd like a little more comfort that I know that this is everybody's coming together. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So, a little challenge for you there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm confident that whatever you're hearing is a resolvable issue if it exists out there, and I think the progress that we've made has been
Good.
substantial.
That's great. That's great.
To say,
Well, I'm not keeping tabs with it every day, Mark, so I'm sure you're much closer to it than I am.
yes, I mean, I live, sleep, and breathe this stuff, as you would imagine, and the spotlight shined on Indiana and its tourism capacity is far greater today than I think it's
Right.
been in a long, long time.
Okay.
And it's only accomplished through collaborative work.
Well, we're doing a lot of good things. There's no doubt about that. Well, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to.
Senator, I guess we will leave it to your pleasure. We've gone through the material and be happy to answer any more questions.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts this morning on this? Well, we face the sense that I have without seeing what the revenue forecast is going to be yet is that it's not going to be that easy of a budget to put together. There are a lot of pent-up demands, and so if this is going to be one of the areas where we want to make an investment, we need to be confident that that's the one that's going to work the best for us. So I just challenge you to make sure you make that case for us here in the coming months, all right?
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
We still appreciate your time, and we want you to know that we appreciate every dollar, and we work very hard to put those dollars to use.
Right.
So thank you very, very much.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I did have one other question generally, aside from tourism. You still have a line item for the IDA accounts,
Yes, sir.
and I was a Senate sponsor of that bill 100 years ago when we started that program, and it hasn't grown a whole lot. The concept behind it feels good and sounds good, and I don't know if the people who are taking advantage of it are getting some real benefit with respect to educational benefits or buying a home or starting a business. So I would like for you to review that before we get into the session. Sometimes you have to decide the idea is great, but it's not really doing much. Let's decide whether to keep it or not, okay? All right.
We do have Jake Sipe here. Be happy to ask him to say a few words about the IDA.
You work with the IDA account thing? Good.
Yeah. Jake, come forward.
In your estimation, is the thing still working? Is it producing some value for some people?
And very much so. And
Okay.
in fact, we have been able to actually reach out to some other private sector to see if they'd be willing to continue to actually to add additional funds to the program.
All right, that's good to hear.
I can get you the outcomes of the IDA participants.
That's great.
But the $1 million leverages another $1 million that we receive from the federal government. but we've been outreached with FDIC and some other groups that are promoting financial literacy to see if they would also be interested in investing into Indiana's IDA program.
Give
We
me
are the largest beneficiary a recipient of $1 million in the nation. We're the oldest IDA account. We're the largest one who receives
Almost as old as me.
good tradition. We have a good tradition here in Indiana for IDAs.
Good.
And we're continuing to actually looking to hopefully challenge ourselves to see if we can expand it without additional funds from the state through other ways to do that.
Good for you.
Yes.
And that's what I want to hear. I want to know that it's working, and I want to have some tangible examples of the kinds of people that are actually taking advantage of it and it's working for them, okay? All right. Thank you.
Chairman, can we ask a
Yes, Senator Broden, I'm sorry. Thank you. You did come.
also that information? I'd be very interested in that as well.
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Chairman?
Okay, thank you. Anything else you want to add?
Just our sincere appreciation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, money is precious, and we're here to guard it, so you got to convince us, okay? Thank you. Okay, are we, well,
You want anything more on the small business entrepreneurship questions, more detail on funding?